Okay, we are recording.
Well, I have my own business, and that's why they have me here. But, out here, y'all take a business card. I got one. You have one. And I've been doing it forever, but I just did it part-time when I was working as principal.
Right.
And so, now, I still don't work full-time, I work a couple days a week, but it's all I do, so.
Alright, so a couple of housekeeping things. If you haven't been here before, bathrooms are down the hall on the left. Make sure you sign in. Feel free to find your little name tent. There are little blank pieces of paper in the middle. If you have questions, we'll kind of write them down and turn them in. For Bridget, since you're on Zoom, if you will just put your questions in the chat, and then we'll kind of go over all the questions later.
Is Bridget adult or child?
Bridget is an adult. She's one of our advocates.
Well, with all of us being adults, and everybody signed off on confidentiality, I'm fine for everybody just asking the questions out loud.
Okay.
But we opened up the program for kids to come as well. And I was definitely expecting some kids, so I'll change a little bit of what we're gonna do. But I think we could just, if you're okay
Yes,
with it,
I'm okay
I'm
with
perfectly fine. So Bridget, if you just wanna, ask your question, if any of us are talking, we'll just stop and then I'll do my best to answer it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, so, are you
I'll
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Do it quicker. So this is Kathy Lepley. She is a wonderful woman, and you will soon find out. She used to be in education full-time, and over the years, she kind of started like a tutoring college prep business on the side, and now she does that full-time. And so we got connected with her through Miss Tony, and so she helps get people in high school prepared for college, and then also helps tutor them and teach them good study habits. I might not be doing the best
You're doing
explanation.
great. I'll explain a little further if
Okay.
we need it, but yeah, you're doing great.
But yes, so our goal in having her today was to have our kids learn directly from her, and to have y'all learn kind of what all our kids need to be thinking about going into it, because I know personally, I feel like I couldn't properly prepare a teenager on my case to do it. I just feel like you just really gotta have good brains, or you really gotta just focus. Like, I can't connect with them on that level. I feel like I've been too far removed already. So we are very grateful for her. So I will let her take over now.
Thank you, so good.
Yes.
And I wanted to thank Miss Tony and Rachel for inviting me to speak to y'all because of, I just have a strong passion for helping people, anybody, but people get to a point in their lives where they can provide for themselves, and that fills their life with some kind of joy, and they're not dependent on other people. And so when I came in, the business I have is called ACE, and it's Academic Coaching for Excellence. And what I do is, we've got several tiers to it, and we are franchising the business this year, so it is getting extremely large. So I do start with high school students. I have parents that normally contact me, and I look at and talk to the parent mainly in high school, so that would be y'all. And we go over, what's your child active in, make sure you're keeping these kind of records, and we go over each of the things that a student needs to be competitive on a college application, which, by the way, will also make them extremely competitive on just a job application. And so we go through all of it, and most of the time students are missing or need more depth. They're not missing it, but they need more depth in community service and leadership. Leadership is the big killer, because they always think leadership is being elected president of the student council in their high school. And leadership is not always elected positions. And a lot of I always found, as I've taught, that, and as a principal, a lot of the students in the positions that are coming to y'all really do have leadership qualities. They attract people. People are attracted to them, but they don't lead well because they haven't had good role models maybe growing up. They make bad decisions, or they've seen that. Or maybe they do make good decisions, but on paper they struggle to put down their leadership things that they've done. And so that's a big category that we end up working on. And I'll go in further on all of this, but I'm just kind of going over what my business does right now. And then I help students by reading their applications and their essays when they apply to college. And then I help them with securing scholarships, which I'm very grateful. Miss Tony, I think, it might have been Rachel, but gave me the pamphlet on the students that come through this program. And that definitely is not a concern of theirs, because now, do you want to apply for scholarships? You absolutely do, because you probably could fund any kid that came through this program beyond, and they're beyond what their needs are. And in reality, colleges are writing overage checks every day to students. And of course, that was a big part of why that piece of the business started, because we were very fortunate to have a student that got overage checks, and people want to know how we got there. And when I say overage, we're talking more money than some people make annually. And so we do that for the high school kid, or the kids going through high school, and they'll hire me, parents hire me as early as junior high normally, all the way till I get calls and I've got a senior. And so then the freshman year, and that's where we're really preparing for, is what skills does a student need going into college. And so freshman year, I do normally, the parents will keep me on with their child for me to monitor and answer any questions they have. And I answer everything under the sun, from how do you pull football tickets to how do I change class, how do I talk to a professor, how do I deal with the disability center. My financial aid did not come in, so they have a person they can go to. Even if parents know, I have right now on my roster for this year 3 students whose parents work for the university. But we've all learned this, including us. Your children get to a certain age and they're fighting for their independence, and no matter what you tell them, they're not listening. And so that's where parents are like, you know what, I don't want to fight with my kid on this. I know you're pretty much telling them the same thing I am, but I'm willing to pay you so that I don't have to deal with that. And then when I retired, because we had so many people saying, oh my gosh, I wish, get a lot of school teachers' children. They say, oh, I wish I would have known this, or I wish they would have taught my kid this in school. So the last piece we put in place, which was this year, and I already do have contracts with school districts, is I go in and I do a parent program, which is, I'm going to kind of tweak some of the kid things that we were going to do today, and I'm going to give you more, I think, of that parent program, because you're all the parents of these students. And I have a teacher workshop where I go in and we instruct teachers how to teach study skills in their curriculum. That is missing across the board in every school district, and it doesn't matter what state you go to school in. And the thing is, it's like Rachel was saying, I just say get good grades. Teachers tend to say you need to study harder. Well, that did not help a kid, because they don't know what that means, they don't know what it looks like, and so that's really that's the business umbrella. That's every piece of this business. I do work year round. I have kids in summer school. They're very small numbers, but I have a few that go to summer school, and then, they do go to school in the spring and fall, but, okay, I'm gonna make sure I turn my phone off, because, I promise you, the college applications opened on the 1st, and so my phone has been pretty hot, these last few days. I think what Miss Tony and Rachel did not know about me, and were very surprised, I don't know, Tony probably went home going, oh my God, I did not know that, is I have the background of these students is as close as I would ever want to get to them. I was not put in foster care. I don't know if they had foster care back in those days, but my brother and I were both kidnapped by our parent and given and taken to the parent that didn't have custody and hidden, and grew up extremely poor, no heat, no air. We worked from a very young age, and one of the things I kept when I was cleaning out my mom's house, she used to write on notepads. She used to write notes to us, and she'd go to work and telling us what to do. And I was 10, and it said, I know you don't feel well, but sit on the steps. She got us an above the ground pool because we had no air conditioning. That was the way to keep us cool and probably out of our hair too. I cannot imagine leaving my kid home with any pool unattended, but it said, please watch your sister and make sure she doesn't drown. Sorry. And I was 10. And my note to my brother was, I know you're very unhappy, but try to help your sister. And I had a list. Hang out the clothes, wash the clothes, do the dishes. A very rough upbringing, very rough. And so I'm the only person in my family that has a college education. I did have to work at it. I did have to go to college. I paid for it myself. I had some scholarship money, but I also had to take some loans out at the end to finish. It took me longer than it should have. It took me just about 6 years just from start to finish because, one, there weren't people like me, and honestly, when I went to college, I think I was probably an oddity because they kept their distance, and I was probably really rough in my verbiage. I was raised, there were drugs around, a lot of alcohol, that kind of thing. So I'm sure they were thinking, where did this girl come from? So I do know I can relate to the students that y'all work with. I don't even have an issue imagining some of the lives they come from because I think I can definitely put myself in their shoes. But I'm a first generation college student, and it was my goal to make sure that my daughter, statistic-wise, first generation to get out of poverty, their children, it's a very high percentage go back into poverty or into the lifestyle or life that they're trying to get out of. And so I studied that on my own, and I moved quickly to make sure that my daughter was not one of those statistics. And so that's the background that I think I'm bringing to you so that you'll know, okay, this is not just a business owner and a person. You can explain to your kids, or I can talk to them if you ever have a student that really needs somebody to talk to on educational stuff. I don't mind talking to them and saying, okay, this is your next step. This is what you need to do. But that is my background, and I'm one that got out of that situation. And both of my brother and my sister are still, they're making it, but it is definitely paycheck to paycheck, and it's tight for them. So all of us raised the same. I don't know really what made the difference. I do believe that what makes the difference are role models and trying to get your students to look at the people around them. Look at teachers who and you have to tell them when they come in and they're irritated or upset and say, okay, this person wouldn't push you if they didn't care about you. There's a difference between push and being mean to somebody. And if the student themselves will start looking for people who that's how it started for me. It's like, I had friends at school and their parents, they didn't struggle like we did. They had clothes, they had food, and they definitely had air conditioning. And I was like, okay, what did their parents do? Oh, mom went to school, dad went to school, this person does this, and this person does this. And then that's where it was like, okay, I don't want to live the way I'm living, or that my family lives. My mom did these things, so I'm just going to do the total opposite. That was my strategy. Is just do the total opposite of what's not working. And if it works, great, and if it doesn't work, at least I tried, and then I'll try something else. And so that's the one thing that as these kids go through high school, if you can bring to their attention when they need it, that by asking them questions, who do you see that you think, oh, that would be a really cool job, or I'd like to have a job that pays that much so I can live in a house this nice. It's very materialistic at first, I'll be real honest with you. For me, it was like, okay, we can't afford food or clothes. I want a job that affords those things, okay? And then I looked at the person. It's like, what did they have to do to get there, where they could afford those things? And so that really has to develop in that child's mind so they can start looking at that. And to be extremely specific, my mom was a drinker. She smoked, and there were a lot of men that ran in and out of our house based on who would pay the bills or help pay the bills or whatever. And that was the upbringing. So I never smoked. It's that kind of thing. It's like do the total opposite. Not running around thinking, guys, till I get that degree and I take care of myself. I did not marry until I was in my 30s because it was like, will not marry until I know if that man walks out, because that's how I've been raised all my life, I can still pay my bills with a kid standing next to me. So if you can think about that and relate to that, if your kids are coming from that kind of background, that might really help set their mind where it needs to be to look toward the future. And to know it's very obtainable. It's more obtainable for them than it is a middle-class student. Because the government will pay for their education. And they'll come out of college with no debt, where a student of middle-class parents normally will come out of college with debt. So you can't start talking to them early enough about this. The other thing there are several things, but if you can take them to any college function, can be at any college, doesn't matter, we've got one right here, so that's just perfect. But take them to a football game, take them to a play, take them to anything, get them on the actual grounds. That raises the percentage of those students dreaming about college. And so that's a very important thing to do. Get them a cap with the logo on it of their favorite team. It doesn't matter if it's Notre Dame. It doesn't matter the college. That doesn't make a difference. Being able to watch it on TV and having paraphernalia, a t-shirt or a cap, helps with that dream. Once you put their feet on the soil, that raises the bar for them. Where now it's like when they start dreaming or they tell you, oh man, and you say, hey, what do you think about going to school here? Well, this is pretty cool, it's pretty nice. You say, okay, here's our next step. This is what our next thing is to do. And so they gotta get the goal first, or first it has to start with a dream, and you may have to plant that dream for them, and you do that by buying the cap, or watching the game on the TV, or going to the ball game with them. And then they've gotta make the grades. They go to junior college pretty easily with mediocre grades. So when I say make grades, I'm not talking straight A's. They have to pass the required courses that they need in order to apply for college. I went to junior college before I transferred into A&M, and honestly, never considered a school that big. I worked on a ranch, and one of the clients we had ties to A&M, and that's how that ended up. He said, have you ever considered going there? And I was like, no. And he said, if you want to go there, we will get you in, and we will make sure that you have some support system in place. Well, I didn't have, no one else was talking to me saying that, well, if you'll go to LSU, or if you'll go to, it didn't matter, we were right East Texas, so all of that was available, but there wasn't anybody else talking to me, so it's like, okay, I guess A&M is the place we're going. And thank goodness, because I'm definitely a hardcore Aggie now, but the grade-wise, they're going to have the grades. As their guardians are watching over them, you really need to understand what they need to graduate to go. There are different criteria for graduate to go to junior college versus a four-year college. So if the student's desire is to go to Sam Houston, but they don't have the grades to get into Sam Houston, so we're going to do Lone Star first and then transfer into Sam Houston. That's all doable on high school grades that would get you into junior college, because from junior college you can go into any four-year school, but you can't go straight from high school into a four-year school unless you've had the proper classes. And the counselors do know that, and it changes, or I'd be more than glad to tell you what they are, but it changes. The legislature changes that every 2 years. And so the thing to do is to go in and have a meeting with the counselor and say, with the child, and say, her dream or his dream is to go to Sam Houston, what classes do we have to have? They'll lay it out there for you, and then you look at it, and if you're like, I'm not too sure about this physics class, then your other route is to go to junior college and not have to take physics until later into junior college, where they're more mature and that kind of thing. So you just have to look at both avenues for them. But if their dream is to go straight to the four-year college, then you line out what they need to be able to pass the classes they need in order to be able to apply. Okay. They need to have, and I know I talked to y'all and I saw some of y'all writing, they've got to have community service. On these applications, we're looking at usually 20 entries, and you cannot double dip. So you can't put community service and turn around over here and put it as leadership. Okay, so unless one activity, you were the leader of your little group that went and cleaned up somebody's yard, and then the next year you were in the group and someone else led, then you can have it both places because it's two different events. But you need to be able to have about 20 community service events, and a variety is definitely better than doing it all at the same place or all for the same person. And community service is anything they don't get paid for. So if you're waiting in the grocery line and there's some little old lady or man and they're, struggling to get their groceries out of their cart, and you can get your student to step up and say, can I help you, and put them out on the belt, that's community service. It doesn't have to be that you went and did, rang the bell at Christmas time. No, it does not. But you gotta keep up with it, because come their senior year, you don't remember that you put groceries on the belt for some little lady in the grocery store.
Because you're talking about from freshman year to senior, through senior.
So like, you mean like 20 instances throughout those 4 years?
Yes, now, cream of the crop kid is gonna have that they did this their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. That's the max. Yeah. Here's a perfect example, Walker County is the Arrigo Texan. They require 2 years of participating in one of their events in order to apply for their scholarship. But if you volunteered all 4, you're ahead of the kid that only volunteered 2. You got more points, and I'll go over how the scholarships divvy out points so you'll understand why you need to look at it this way, okay? But the more you can get them to do and see what they enjoy and try it, I mean, the better person they are anyway. And so, but they've got to have that both on the college application and any scholarship applications they fill out. And when I say fill out, I don't know, I mean, I've read through this, I'm sure there's more red tape to it, this pamphlet about aging out and how it pays for school. But it says that college tuition and fees are waived for any of these students. I don't know if they would waive if you already had everything paid for with a scholarship, but let's say they do, because that does happen, especially our certain groups of students. This kid gets a $40,000 scholarship from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and they have tuition and fees paid. You're getting a check. They're getting a check. They'll divvy it up into the 4 years. They'll give them $10,000 each year, but that's the overage. And that's where they can begin to live independently, and that's where you begin to teach them how to budget. We're going to put that $10,000 here and then in your savings, and then we're going to budget what you need every month. So we're going to transfer $500 a month into your checking account, and then you're going to pay these things. And anything you have left over, you can go out with your buddies and eat dinner, you can go to movies, budget just like we have to budget. But all of that has to be taught to students because they do not come out of high school with that at all. So it's a great way if you have overage to do that because it's their money. It doesn't come to anyone but the kid. And you sure don't want them going out and blowing the $10,000 because they got to make it last for the semester. So that's 4 months. They have to make it last. And if they make it last all the way till they graduate, then they have money to buy a vehicle, to pay their down payment on whatever, to go on to another school. If they want to do a professional school, it's their money. It's in their checking account. Okay? They need to be involved in something. And when I say that, it's just a wide range. Or they need to work. So if you have a child that's involved in sports at school, great. If they're involved in FFA, 4-H, great. They've got to be in something because one of the sheets you're going to fill out is what are you active in? And you don't need 20-somethings, excuse me, but you really need to have something. And if you have more than one, it's fine. It's great. It's no big deal. But you're not competing on, you know, I had 15 things on this particular category. You are competing on your depth in things. Like, did you stay with a program for any length of time? Looks good if the kid participated for their full 4 years. It can be the drama club. It doesn't matter what it is, but we need to have something they're involved in.
Or they need to work.
Or they need to work, yes. And or I will say that they need to be involved in something at school. It doesn't have to be real time consuming, some kind of club, if they work. All right, because they are going to need to show some involvement there. That's 2 totally separate pages in an application, in a college application. And work can be summers only, and they don't have to have work for the college application. And there's a page for it, but there are a lot of kids that, y'all know this, I mean, your kids really, a lot of them probably want to work because they really like to have some money and some freedom. But there are a lot of kids that don't work through high school because their parents don't need them to, or they don't want to, or I don't know. There's a lot of them. But if you have a child that doesn't work, they need to, you need to pay particular attention if anybody pays them for anything. Like if they go mow somebody's yard and they pay them $20, because you can put that on the college application as work. Anything they get paid for. If somebody says, hey, will you come over and help me paint my barn? There you go. And it could be just a week, but it's a work activity if they get paid. So we need to make sure that you keep those kind of, because students will forget those things too. Just because it wasn't a lot of pay and it was over any length of time, they tend to forget that. Questions so far on really right now what we're talking about is what their need of for that college application.
You talked about involvement. That could be sports, it could be a club, it could be band, it could be youth group, it could be work.
It could be church. It doesn't have to be,
youth group.
doesn't have to be school, but we really need to show some involvement, something beyond just work. Although I know a lot of, not a lot, but there are students that they work a lot, but they still will go to guitar club at school, or they'll still be part of, it may not be a big thing at school, like the band or that kind of thing, but they still have some attachment to people. That would be the best. If you don't get that, then you don't get it, but that would be what's best.
Do a little both.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So now what they need to know to get their grades up in high school, and this applies to college as well, but students get textbooks for the most part. Schools don't, all right, let me rephrase that. They don't really get textbooks for the most part anymore because everything's online. But they need to read, and high school students don't do that unless it's the English class. Because in English, you're supposed to read Beowulf or whatever the story is, but they don't read their science book. They don't read the chapter. They let the teacher teach, and the teacher goes over everything they really need them to know, and then the teacher tests them on it, and they truly can do very well. They can make great grades and never have read the material, except for what the teacher gave them. But then they start college, and the teacher does not, they go over things, but they don't touch the magnitude of what's in the chapter, and they test over